We want to hear the next big voice, that is KCCB. If you want to stay on and hear what they have to say, you are most welcome. KCCB, you're next. The Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, KCCB.
I'm going to give a copy. The summary.
You can introduce yourselves.
Here before you is the KCCB team that has come to do our memorandum on these different issues that were identified by the National Dialogue Committee. Father Charles Kilonzo, George Biruri,
Wanjala Nasimio,
Constance Mtende.
So on behalf of KCCB, we will go straight to present our memorandum.
Now, before you do, I'm sure you're conversant with these faces by now, thanks to the media. I think everybody knows Honorable Catherine Wabelianga, a former senator, now member for Yala, Hassan Omar. We have Amina Munyazi, member for Malindi. Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalo is a party leader and a former cabinet minister. The deputy minority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, has just walked out. Opiyo Ndai, the co-chair. There's Senator Omugen, Senator for Nyamira. And then we have Cicely Barire and myself. Karibuni.
Asante. So, honorable chairs and the whole committee, all protocols observed, I was saying we'll go straight to the presentation of our memorandum. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will do the presentation on behalf of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. And we are the General Secretariat management who have come to represent the bishops. I will go straight to the issues. The first one being outstanding constitutional issues. We were able to come up with specific issues under the same outstanding issues. And under Article 43 of the Constitution, on the issue of the cost of living and related issues, these are the issues raised by KCCB. The first one is high standard of health. And here are our concerns. We are still not very comfortable with the way the Article 43 and Article 26(4) of the Constitution have been framed, and KCCB is of the view that it still promotes the issue of reproductive health rights in terms of abortions, and those two articles somehow are disguised to promote abortion. The second issue that we have is the cost of health is very high. The cost of healthcare is very high. There's lack of health facilities in some areas. There's inadequate equipment in health facilities. There's a lot of jurisdictional conflict between the national and county government health sectors, and especially the hospitals. We have issues with the frequent strikes by the medical personnel. There's the conflict of interest by the medical personnel, especially the public officers who are allowed to open their private clinics, and they tend to concentrate more on the private clinics that they operate more than the public hospitals. Then there's still the issue of corruption, and the stealing of drugs and equipment has also been reported. These are the proposals on how to deal with the high standard of health. The first one is to amend Article 43(1)(a) and Article 26(4) to outlaw abortion. We need it to be very clear from the articles of the Constitution that abortion is outlawed in Kenya. We would also request that there should be a relooking at the national insurance model to make it affordable for the poor. We also request that we amend Article 186 and the fourth schedule to provide that the functions of the level 4, 5, and 6 hospitals to be assigned to the national government. In that way, we'll ensure that there is a proper administration of the hospitals, and the other levels should go to the county government. We're also requesting that we amend the government or the members of parliament amend the Health Act to restrain the public officers from opening and running their private clinics. Our second issue is the non-denial of emergency medical treatment. We agree that it's a noble thing for the patients to be treated when there's an emergency. However, we have an issue with the fact that sometimes these patients are unable to pay the medical bills after they are treated, and we therefore request that the NHIF Act and any other health acts are amended to have an emergency fund to cater for any emergency issues from patients who have emergency issues, so that the patients do not suffer and the hospitals do not suffer in the end of it all. On the issue of accessible and adequate housing and reasonable standards of sanitation, these are the concerns from KCCB. The government housing programs have failed in the past. Number two, the government should only concentrate on creating an enabling environment and developing good policies. And we therefore recommend that the Finance Act should be amended to remove the housing tax levy, because there is a possibility that it will not perform well as envisioned from the previous history that we have. Another concern that we had was freedom from hunger and adequate food of accessible quality. And these are our issues from KCCB. There is no Food Security Act that is being implemented. There is a lot of food that goes to waste due to inadequate storage facilities and lack of accessible markets. For example, what is happening in Trans Nzoia County right now with the issue of maize and their storage. Then we have dishonest people who have been interfering with the safety of food and risking the health of the people. These are our proposals. We request that we enact the Food Security Act and implement measures that will promote food production in Kenya. We also request that measures should be taken to promote agricultural production, and the farmers should be given more priority when it comes to giving out food and buying of food by the government. We also request that the government puts in place measures to prevent interference with food safety, and they develop a program to provide food to the people who cannot afford. There's also an issue with the adequate, clean, and safe water, and the main concerns are the drying up of rivers, the pollution of rivers, inadequate dams, irregular water supplies, and contaminated water. We request that the Environmental Management and Coordination Act should be enforced to ensure that the water is protected. We also request that some measures should be put in place to clean up the rivers, and more dams should be built, especially in areas that are flooding, so that when we have floods, we can be able to store the water and it can be used later on during the dry areas. We also request for an improved water supply system. The issue of social security, we have had reports of corruption in the social security schemes, and there is also delays in the release of retirees' pension. These are our proposals: streamline the social security schemes, stop the corruption in the retirement benefit schemes, ensure timely release of pension to the retirees. And on the issue of provision of appropriate social security to persons who are unable to support themselves and their dependents, these are the concerns. We have had allegations of corruption in the cash transfer program. There are also many people who are qualified, yet they are left out from the scheme. They do not benefit from it. And there's also the delay of the release of the cash transfer of the funds to the people. We request for the following: investigate and stop any corruption in the cash transfer system. The government should ensure that anyone who qualifies for it and is eligible is enrolled for the same. There should be timely release of cash, and there should be a relooking into the system to ensure that only those who are needy benefit from it. And those who are able to take care of themselves, they should be allowed to do it without interfering with the money that is meant for the needy. There's the issue of education. There is confusion in the system. There is inadequate education facilities. There is inadequate funding. There's lack of transparency in the university financial model, and there is lack of jobs. At the moment, we know there is some money from HELB, but who qualifies and how the same is done is not very clear to the public. We request for the following: streamlining the education system, building the adequate education facilities, improving transparency in the university education financial model, especially the HELB system, develop policies that will create jobs for the graduates. Then there was a specific issue concerning the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, and these are our concerns from KCCB. Delays in the implementation of the gender principle in Parliament, failure to respect the principle in government appointments. And we propose the following: amend Articles 97 and 98 to reduce the size of Parliament so that the cost of burden can be reduced from the general public. We also request that we use the forthcoming elimination of electoral units to reduce the size of Parliament so that the number can reduce, and in the end of it all, the burden that is transferred to the public is reduced. Governance issues, including promoting national unity and inclusivity in public appointments. These are our issues. Perceived exclusion of people from the opposition areas in appointments and development. There is also an issue in discrimination of opposition areas in the allocation of funds for development and infrastructure. There's also an issue in promotion of ethnicity in politics. These are our proposals. Enforce the outlawing of discrimination in terms of appointments, development, and allocation of funds. We also request that there should be equity. The government should ensure that there is equity in the allocation of funds and projects from all over the country. It doesn't matter whether you're in the opposition side or in the government side. We also request for promotion of collaboration between the government and the opposition for peaceful coexistence. The other specific issue we had was adequate checks and balances, and these are the concerns from KCCB: weakening of the opposition through defections, weakening of the constitutional commissions through underfunding and interference with their mandate, breach of the principle of separation of powers.
Yeah, can I suggest that
Yes.
since we have the memorandum, she skips the column on concerns and just goes to
Okay.
proposals.
So that I can go straight to the proposals?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So on the adequate checks and balances, these are our proposals. Amend the Political Parties Act to discourage poaching of opposition members. Represent and respect and adequately fund the constitutional commissions, the arms of the government to operate independently as per the Constitution. On the specific issue of restructuring and reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commissions, these are our proposals. Tighten Article 250 of the Constitution to provide for a fair and transparent election and appointment process of the chairman and the commissioners. We are also proposing that we amend the IEBC Act to provide for an acceptable selection process. Amend either Article 88 or 250 to provide for an independent body to appoint the chairman and the commissioners. The selection process should involve all major stakeholders and not only or mainly the political parties. Amend the IEBC Act to provide for the vetting of the IEBC Secretariat. The Secretariat staff, and we're also requesting that we amend the IEBC Act to provide that the field staff shall be hired on a need basis only. This would reduce the burden from the public because they are paid even when there's nothing much to be done on the ground. On the specific issues of boundary delimitation, these are our proposals. Amend Article 6 of the Constitution to correct the disparity and provide for a formula for the limitation of counties. Amend Article 89 to provide for a more just formula in the delimitation of counties and the wards. Sorry, the constituencies and the wards. Specific issues on audit of the 2022 presidential elections. These are our proposals. Amend Article 88 4H to remove the evaluation function from the IEBC. When you evaluate yourself, most of the time you will not be able to give proper reports. Amend Article 88 to provide for an independent audit within 1 year after the elections. On the issue of the National Government Constituency Development Funds, the National Government Affirmative Action Funds, and the Senate Oversight Fund, we propose the following. We do not in any way oppose the entrenchment of the funds in our Constitution. We are, however, opposed to the fact that there is no separation of powers when it comes to checks and balances, and the legislators should not be allowed or be involved in the executive duties. We also request that we amend the respective Funds Acts to provide that the funds shall be managed by the executive branch of the counties or the local national government administration. And we are requesting that the Senate Oversight Fund that is in the process of being introduced should be stopped. Finally, on the office of the leader of the official opposition, we propose the following. Amend the Constitution to provide for the office of the leader of the opposition. We are, however, not very comfortable with the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary because the title is very confusing, and we propose that we retain the provisions in Article 152, and therefore we should not have the post in the of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Those are our submissions. I will wind up with preventing interference with political parties. The proposal is to amend Section 14A, B, and C of the Political Parties Act to provide that a by-election must be held where a member defects. Thank you very much to the honorable panel. I'll hand over to Father.
Chair. I have got a very small question to you.
Wandai and then Omar.
Very, very small question.
Yeah.
You have suggested that we do away or we amend Article 88 4H
Yes.
to remove the task of evaluation of elections from the IEBC and take it elsewhere.
Yes.
I realize the fact that even as currently crafted, that section doesn't actually give that task to IEBC. It simply requires the IEBC to facilitate that evaluation. Just try to ponder around that. 2, are you in any way associated with the body going by the name Interreligious Council of Kenya, which is currently represented in the IEBC selection panel by 2 representatives? And if you are, do you feel adequately represented by those 2 persons? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mine will be very brief on the housing levy. The housing that is being built by government is intended for the most vulnerable in society. If you look at the criteria for the awarding of those housing, they are incomes of people who naturally will not access credit from a conventional bank. 1, there is a KMRC, Kenya Mortgage Refinance Corporation, that is intended to give affordable credit to will-be house buyers. Will-be house buyers. Would-be house buyers. And that mortgage, affordable mortgage, is to be at the cost of 5 to 6%. Guys, at the cost of 5 to 6%. Yeah, 5 to 6%. So that takes care of the demand side. The housing levy is supposed to encourage developers, that thing you're talking about, creating the enabling environment. If developers don't have somebody who can take the market risk through the supply side. What proposals do you have that can amend and remove the housing levy and still encourage developers to produce housing at affordability at a margin of about 12 to 15% profit?
Thank you.
Chair. Yes, Honorable Catherine, and then later Honorable Amina.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Whereas they have given us a very good proposals, especially on the standards of hospitals and maybe their health facilities as far as they're concerned. And your proposals are quite in line. I think I concur with them, especially where you say the practitioners tend to really concentrate more on their private practices and forget about the public hospitals. There I would really concur. You had a proposal on the 2/3 general. That's where I'm coming next. And your proposal was not clear. It just said you reduce the burden. By reducing the constituencies and reducing the counties, is that your way of balancing the 2/3 general? What else can you say about that? And also you had something on the Senate Oversight Fund, and it was just blatantly you stop it. You said you don't approve of it. You have not given us any reasons as to why you don't approve the Senate fund to be entrenched. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mheshimiwa Amina.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is a short one. During campaigns, we witnessed and we saw that so many religious bodies were actively involved in campaigns. Right now, we have issues as a country, especially on the cost of living, and so many Kenyans are suffering. My question will be, as religious bodies, have you done enough to air out your voices to the authorities involved in order to, manage the cost of living?
Chair, through you. Chair, through you.
Yes. Senator Mugeni.
Yeah. Now, I've seen at first is to thank the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops for a very comprehensive presentation that also seeks to, you ask questions, identify problem, and provide answers. That's commendable. Now, on delimitation of boundaries, this is a fairly sensitive matter, very emotive. You have made a proposal that we amend Article 89, okay, and Article 6, so that we correct the disparity and provide a formula for delimitation of counties. And you have also said we amend 89 so that we have what you call a more just formula in the delimitation of constituencies and wards. Now, what we have in the current Article 89 is to use population but allow a deviation of 40% in urban areas, 30% in rural. You have posed a question, but you have not told us what is this just formula that you want us to replace with what is in Article 89. So can you maybe tell us what is in your thinking? What more just formula are you looking at? So that you ask the question and give us a solution. And then finally, the political parties, coalition, fidelity to political parties. You have made a proposal that we amend Section 14 to provide that a by-election must be held where a member defects. Maybe you just help us. If we were to define a defection in our current political, you live in Kenya, I live in Kenya. When is a member deemed to have defected from his party? Thank you.
Thank you. You can now respond, and you have 5 minutes to do so. Kindly.
Father will start.
Okay, Father.
Thank you. I will start with the question on Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, our representation as KCCB. One, we believe in inter-religious dialogue, and there are many things that we engage together with the other churches. When it comes to this Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, our position and the view is especially that we be represented as KCCB.
What does it mean there, on the chair? Are you part of that council or not? Or were you a party to the decision of the council to second those two representatives to the panel or not?
There were issues to be ironed in terms of the representation. And we are just saying simply, would wish to be represented as KCCB.
That's fair enough. Okay, let's proceed.
I will answer on the issue of the Senate fund. We find it's unnecessary for us to create a Senate fund because already the Parliamentary Service Commission provides a budget for the Senate for its operation. So when the committees go out, they are already catered for. So what is this oversight fund supposed to do? We don't see its necessity anywhere. On the delimitation of electoral units, we have proposed amendment of Article 6 and 89. Let me start with Article 6. Our counties are based on the districts as they were established by 1992, and most of them were set up by the colonial government. The Moi and Kenyatta regime, the first Kenyatta, only established 6 more districts. So the colonialists did not use the right, they didn't have any formula. They just looked at ethnicities and declared these to be counties. So we have such a disparity in terms of the distribution of the counties. And this has an effect in decisions in the Senate, where representation and some decisions are based on the counties, the delegations, etc. That is why we are calling for an establishment of a system of identifying delimitation of counties. With regard to Article 89, we have had a lot of problems, whether we are to go population only or we are to include what people call the land sizes. We are calling for a more pragmatic approach where we don't leave anybody behind, but we take everybody on board. But we have to do it in such a way such that we don't have complaints where people say that this member of parliament is only representing 20,000 voters or people, whereas this other one is representing over 500,000 people. So we are asking that Article 89 should be amended so that we can have a more justifiable process of delimiting our electoral units, and especially the constituencies. Thank you.
Okay. There was an issue about the 2/3 gender rule. What we meant by reducing the size of parliament is, if you look at the articles, they state that if the 2 gender thirds rule has not been actualized, more people should be brought on board so as to balance. So our proposal is that will be very unfair to the people because it will increase the number. So when we say reducing the size, that is the number we are referring to. It should not be cured by including more people so as to balance. The constitution should be very clear on which mechanism should be used to balance the 2/3 gender rule during the elections and not after.
And what about the one on housing?
On the one on housing, our major problem is most of the time what the government has tried to do before has not actually been actualized because of various issues. We have allegations of corruption coming in. We have delayed processes. Sometimes we're not so sure about the processes that come in with procurement and all that. And therefore, we believe that this is not the best way to go right now, because the people are not ready, they are struggling, and the extra 1.5 is an extra burden on them that they're not able to bear right now. If better processes will be put in place in future, then it can be looked into.
Okay.
I think that, do you have anything else?
Okay,
We really
thank
must
you
thank
very
you.
much. Yeah.
I was going to thank you on behalf of Cicely, but we ended up doing it, both of us. And on behalf of the committee, for very clear thinking. So we really realized it must have been read in the name of the chairperson, Owa, right?
Yes.
So, and we take the work of this conference very seriously, Catholic bishops. So we would have felt less than equal to the task if you didn't make this presentation. Although I was going to ask you a small thing like corruption and stealing of drugs. I thought it's one and the same thing. And I think that you have gone to the core of the issues. As Catherine was saying, and I'm happy that this has been addressed for the first time, where you have doctors with private clinics. It's like an established product, and you see drugs disappearing from the hospitals, and they end up being really that stealing. And nobody has addressed us on that issue. So we thank you. These are issues of conscience, and we have to really slay the dragon of corruption in this country. We are going to move ahead. But we thank you. Now, those issues which require amendment to the Constitution, would you consider as you leave us, because NCCK were before you, and they are clear in their mind, this country cannot take a referendum. And the issues that you refer to, a lot of them requiring constitutional amendment, may require a referendum. What is your view? And then you can leave us, even as we thank you.
Okay. This is our view. A referendum does not take a day to happen, neither does it take a month or 2 months. We might not be ready for a referendum right now, but in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, we'll be ready for it. And the truth is, we cannot go on operating with the Constitution the way it is, because there's a lacuna that needs to be filled. And before we leave, we'd like to tender the apologies from the bishops. We have a National Prayer Day coming up on Saturday. You are all welcome to come for it. That is one of the measures that the religious people are trying to use to bring harmony. And they were not able to come here today because we are trying to organize for it. Karibuni sana.
You address our concerns, because when I looked at you, the two of you, the ladies, and then the father, then we didn't see Bishop Martin Kivuva or Muheria and all this, but we are certain they're very ably represented by you. Thank you.
Yes, they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think next is the Electoral Law Governance Institute for Africa. Please come forward. Elgia.
These ones we can